A couple months ago, I got into an internet argument. Crazy, I know. Me? Criticizing things? Well, that doesn't sound like me. But you're probably thinking, it's the internet, big whoop. Who cares? But this interaction was different. This actually happened 6 months ago, and I still think about it. Stay with me, I promise this is relevant. This argument took place on a post about A24's upcoming film called Priscilla, which is a biopic about Priscilla Presley, Elvis Presley's wife. And if you don't know who Elvis Presley is, the short answer is that you probably do, because he's one of those people that even if you don't know anything about him, you've most likely heard his music somewhere or seen him. Like shit, even if you've seen Lilo and Stitch, you know what Elvis looks like. Granted, Stitch is actually very cute in this outfit. He was extremely popular in the 1950s, has fans all over the world, including Lana Del Rey, and is nicknamed the King of Rock and Roll. And just to reinforce the gravitational pull that Elvis has around him, there are Elvis-themed weddings, which is basically the boomer version of a Harry Potter wedding for millennials. And just last year, Elvis actually got his very own biopic called Elvis, starring Austin Butler. And this movie, much like everything else surrounding Elvis, was a big deal. It won like a crap ton of awards, people love it, but one glaring issue with this film is that it completely ignores how weird his relationship was with Priscilla Presley. For starters, big Vine boom, Priscilla was only 14 years old when he met her, and he was 24. That is a 10-year age gap. That is a sophomore in high school with a full grown-ass man. And not only was he an adult, but one of the most popular musicians in the world. So of course to Priscilla, who was just a child, getting attention from this man would seem like the coolest shit ever. But no matter what way you look at it, it is a clear case of grooming and abuse. There's no ethical way that a 14-year-old and a 24-year-old can be together. End of story. And so I left a comment on this trailer saying I was excited to see this film because it was from her perspective and not his. That she deserved her own movie because Elvis was a groomer and a creep. And I have no idea why, but I expected this to be uncontroversial. I thought this was as fact-based as saying the sky is blue or the world is round. But to my horror and dismay, there was so many people in this comment section that defended what he did to her and even outright deny that there was anything wrong with their relationship. They would say things like, it was a different time, or he wasn't a pedophile, he waited until she came of age to have sex with her. But honestly, the worst defense that I saw has to be this one. So you're telling me that because his soulmate happened to be a lot younger when they met, at a time when it was not yet frowned upon, that makes him an awful person? Copium. Absolute copium. And the craziest part about all of this is that I went out of my way to tell them, hey, I understand. You like his music. You grew up with it. That's fine. But why would you be in denial about this? Why defend the act of grooming a 14-year-old? The words "times were different back then" seem to indicate two things. Number one, because people didn't care that it happened, that makes it okay. And number two, children were less innocent back then than they are now. These relationships would not have had the same psychological effect as they would today. These two arguments, born from the words "times were different back then," do not hold up for 3 whole seconds. Because of course, a lot of horrible things used to be okay. And these things that we speak of that used to be okay have had irreversible consequences on many different communities, i.e. racism, homophobia, transphobia. And as for kids in the 1950s or earlier than that, do you think that they just didn't have feelings? Like, did Priscilla suffer any more or less than this happening to somebody in 2023? I think not. The only appropriate thing that you can say times were different about is shuffling. Listen, we used to shuffle. We used to have shuffle sessions. Times were different back then. But what made me even more confused about Elvis somehow being exempt from any kind of responsibility about this was when I found out that there was another popular musician in the 1950s called Jerry Lee Lewis, and he got virtually 1950s canceled for doing something very similar to Elvis. There's no easy way to put this. He married his 13-year-old cousin at age 22 too. But this guy was shamed and collectively abandoned by society. Overnight, people began boycotting his music. The press dubbed him the cradle robber, and his performing fees dwindled from $10,000 a night all the way down to $250. So that's great, right? We love to see a pervert get humiliated. Ultimately, yeah, this is even more gross because it was his cousin, but it's still grooming and the age gap is almost exactly the same. And that's when I asked myself, why are we so unwilling to be critical of popular media? Why is our impulse to bury our most pressing concerns? Whether it be real people, i.e. celebrities, or different art forms like movies, books, TV, music, we should be able to be honest about what's wrong with it, even if we love it. In fact, I'd say it's even more important to do it if we love it. Because do you know how they introduced Priscilla in Elvis's biopic last year?
Priscilla, the pretty teenage daughter of a United States Air Force officer.
That is the one and only time that they allude to her age in that movie. They also made sure to have this actress look a lot closer to Austin Butler's age and act as if she had the independence and maturity of an adult.
Never met anyone like you.
I hope not.
The entire reality of the relationship is erased in this film, and that was not an accident. Elvis fans don't want to acknowledge it, the director Baz Luhrmann doesn't want to acknowledge it, and funnily enough, back to Lana Del Rey for a moment, like I said, she's a huge fan of Elvis. She even has a lyric in her song, Body Electric, that says, "Elvis is my daddy." And Lana Del Rey's look is heavily inspired by Priscilla Presley. In fact, she was supposed to be part of the Priscilla soundtrack. But unfortunately, or so she says, she didn't have enough time to participate in either making the music or the premiere of the film. What she did have time for was to sing a tribute to Elvis at Graceland. She also had time to work at Waffle House. That's a different story though. This is interesting to me because I wonder if it would have been hard to have a hand in Priscilla, which accurately depicts grooming and abuse via Elvis.
Hurry up!
And in the same breath, attend this Graceland thing celebrating his life. Now, do I really know that this is the reason Lana Del Rey didn't have any hand in Priscilla? No, I don't. But would it be so crazy to think that she, like all of us, is afraid to tackle parts of pop culture that are dark?
Ninth what?
Grade.
You're just a baby.
So I want to talk about some instances of grooming and inappropriate age gaps that I feel like get ignored or just need to be discussed a little bit more. Starting with Scott Pilgrim is a manga series turned cult classic film directed by Edgar Wright, and it's about the title character Scott and his battle to get his dream girl, Ramona Flowers. And before anybody gets mad in the comments, I'm a fan. I've been a fan. I watched this movie in theaters with my mom in 2010. I mean, this was a cultural reset. Envy Adams sang Black Sheep, and I've been bisexual and eat hot chips since. I'm also not claiming that this movie depicts the most gruesome case of grooming that's ever been seen. And no, I'm not telling you to not watch this anymore. No one is trying to cancel Scott Pilgrim. I just think that we should stop ignoring the knives chow in the room. This week's sponsor is Care Of. Lately, I've been wanting to take better care of myself. I just turned 25 and that is so horrible. But Care Of has me in good hands because they offer a set of curated products that are designed to work with research-backed ingredients and optimal doses. So basically, here's what you do. You go on the Care Of website or app and you take this fun little quiz. It takes less than 5 minutes. But honestly, if it went on for longer, I wouldn't mind. I like being asked questions about myself. It made me feel special. But your answer to these questions determines your personalized vitamin pack and powder regimen. So in my quiz, I said that my most pressing concerns were my skin, having energy, my eye health, and my metabolism. And so according to those specific concerns, Care Of sent me astaxanthin, ceramides, chromium plus apple extract, and collagen. The vitamins come in a cute box filled with packs for every day of the month, but this makes it really really convenient to remember to take them, especially on days where you spontaneously bleach your hair.
What do you think about that?
Another great thing that I've noticed is energy. I've often struggled with having like a midday crash and just being like, I don't want to do anything. After about a month of taking these, I started noticing less crashes. So start 2024 off with your own personalized lifestyle regimen. Click the link in the description and use code NikkiC for 50% off your first purchase. Thank you so much, Kara, for sponsoring us this week. And now back to the video. The movie begins with the line,
Scott Pilgrim was dating a high schooler.
Scott is 22 years old, and the teenager in question is a 17-year-old girl named Knives. It's also worth mentioning that in the manga, Knives says that they met on her 17th birthday, meaning she was freshly 17 when they dated. Quote, does that mean you were actually 16 when we met? No way, we met on my 17th birthday, silly. So, how's it feel to be no longer a child in the eyes of the law? Anywho though, focusing mostly on the movie here, Scott and Knives never do anything sexual, thank God, but he does literally go to her high school to pick her up. He walks around with her holding hands. They even go on dates. But another important aspect to this is that he relies on Knives' naivety to boost his ego.
Oh my god. Like, wow.
To tell him he's great, to tell him that he's so cool.
You guys rock. I mean, you guys are gonna be huge.
He tells his friends that he's dating a 17-year-old, and they hype this fact up.
You're dating a high school girl. Not bad, not bad.
Thank you, thank you.
Obviously, kind of fetishizing that she's this Asian schoolgirl, too.
Knives Chow, she's Chinese.
But Scott also infantilizes her, telling her to be good.
You promise to be good?
Of course I'll be good.
Seriously, please be good.
Not only does the movie trivialize how weird this is, it uses her for comedic relief.
How old is she?
Even for having very normal reactions in this situation. Like, for example, being Scott's biggest cheerleader. Or when she tells Scott she loves him. That seems so silly, of course. How can she be in love with him? But if you think about it for 3 seconds, it actually does make sense. As a high schooler, to think you're in love with somebody because they seem cool, because they're older than you, because they're in a band. Knives even says herself,
I mean, I didn't even know there was good music until like 2 months ago.
because she's a kid, she's never even dated or kissed anybody before. We even get the classic, she's mature for her age line in this movie.
Yeah, she's very mature for her age.
And Scott drops Knives only after starting a relationship with Ramona, who is 24 years old, which breaks her heart because, of course, well, the movie is completely different from her perspective. A guy in his 20s picks her up, gets her into the local music scene, she starts going to shows that she's not even old enough to get into.
I promise I will do everything I can to get out of a study group and come.
And then he breaks up with her like she's nothing because, duh, he was using her, which is the whole essence of inappropriate age gaps. And of course, Knives is jealous of this new relationship that he has with Ramona. So she tries to make him jealous by dating young Neil. Young Neil, who is 20 years old. Like, dude, even that's weird. Even at the end of the movie, when Scott does apologize to her, he only exclusively says sorry for cheating on her with Ramona.
I cheated on both of you. I'm really sorry. So are we all good?
Like, this whole thing is made out to be about cheating when that's really like the least of what anyone's concerns should be. But honestly, the worst part of this whole situation is a line that happens at the very end of the film. Knives tells him to go after Ramona.
Go get her.
What?
You've been fighting for her all along.
And in response, he says this.
But what about you?
I'll be fine. I'm too cool for you anyway.
The implication implication that he might have gotten back with her is, it's interesting to say the least. This line doesn't happen in the manga, but in no way do I think the manga makes him look any better. In volume 6, when Knives turns 18, he immediately asks her if she'll have sex with him. You mean you're gonna stop being a high schooler? I'll be so far away from all my friends, but I feel like it's just the right thing to do, you know? You're 18 years old? I just think it's time for a change in my life. A big change. Do you want to have sex? I think we should have sex. Casual sex. So he's definitely a creep in every format. In fact, in the video game, there's a level where Scott fights Knives' dad. Not to mention that in the manga and movie, Scott's reasoning for all of this is simply because he's going through a bad breakup.
It's been over a year since you got dumped by she who will not be named, so...
Dudes will go through one tough breakup and start grooming people. I've noticed that people online get very defensive over this. In fact, there's even memes about how people misinterpret Scott Pilgrim now. But here's the thing, and I feel like the comments might get a little divisive from this. No matter what way you try to spin it, you can say the point of Scott Pilgrim is that he's a bad person. Sure, you can say that, but at the end of the day, in the end of the movie and manga, he is still the hero that gets the girl of his dreams and the happy ending. Even after once again reiterating that he would still date a minor. You can even say that the movie is about him becoming a better person and owning up to his mistakes. But did he? And also, it's interesting that growing and becoming a better person involves dating a minor in the process. Typically, that's not like a standard coming of age thing. And again, I don't think that this is a bad manga or movie. I think that this was a poor creative decision though. Like, we have to ask, what message is that actually sending? And was there a need at all to make Knives 17? Because she could have easily just been a girlfriend that was his same age that he treated really poorly, thus still sending him on that journey to become a better person. I will say though that the new anime that just came out actually handles everything sus about the movie and manga like a million times better. Scott is hardly in this series for one. Knives gets over him in like one episode, and Ramona is truly the hero of the story. But the creator of Scott Pilgrim, Brian Lee O'Malley, when asked about this subject of tackling the underage minor thing differently, he comes off as a little condescending. There's a bit of like, young people see Scott Pilgrim a certain way, and you know, there's a lot of 18, 19-year-old fans that are really judgmental of the character. They're like, oh, he's a bad person, I would never do that. But I always tell them, like, get back to me when you're 25 or 30. Tell me how your 20s went. Were you a bad person? Everyone has to make choices and do things in life that maybe they're not going to be proud of later. With peace and love to Brian Lee O'Malley, because I think he's a great writer, his whole attitude of I'm only changing things because you're too stupid kinda sucks. And I'm not trying to suggest that O'Malley has done something as weird as date a high schooler, but this character, according to him, is intertwined with his own life. In part, for the slacker indie rock world of Scott Pilgrim, O'Malley channeled his own life. He wrote in the afterword of Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, my life at the time became the basis for Scott's cast of characters. The American girlfriend, the unforgettable ex, the gay roommate, the sisters, the friends, and the band members. But these characters weren't direct analogs. Pilgrim may have worn some of the same clothing that O'Malley sported at the time, but the author insists that he's so unlike me in so many ways. Obviously, he is a different person than this character, but if it is based upon him and a lot of his flaws, might there be some projecting happening here?
Mind if I touch your wiener?
What?
Your dog.
I watched No Hard Feelings when it was #1 trending on Netflix. I was hearing buzz about this movie left and right. Everyone was saying,
oh my god, comedy is back! We're finally getting movies like this again?
and full disclosure, I love Jennifer Lawrence. I am a Hunger Games girly through and through. But with peace and love, this movie is really creepy. It's about a 32-year-old woman trying to fuck a 19-year-old. Jennifer Lawrence plays Maddie, a down-on-her-luck Uber driver that is in desperate desperate need of a car after getting hers repossessed. And so she stumbles across this Craigslist ad that says, in a nutshell, looking for someone to date our son Percy. He's really shy, and if you get him to come out of his shell, basically we're gonna give you this Buick. And so she meets up with these parents that have a borderline incestual fascination with their son losing his virginity.
Date him hard.
I'll date his brains out.
And so she makes it her mission to have sex with him. Like, a good portion of this movie is just her hard pressuring this kid to have sex with her when he's clearly not interested.
How about I give you a ride home? And we can keep talking?
Speaking of this, the weirdness gets amplified by the fact that she and everybody else around her refers to Percy as a kid.
Should have this Buick by now, but this kid is unfuckable.
You really think a kid wants to have sex with you in your current condition?
After a full, 30 plus minutes of watching her make this kid uncomfortable,
Am I allowed to be here?
Oh, yeah, I know the owner. It's fine.
It's just that I'm not 21.
I still had some hope that maybe this movie might do a full 180 and they wouldn't even do anything romantic or sexual. But unfortunately, I was wrong.
Come on, let's get you out of these Daisy Dukes.
Maddie.
After a scene of her pressuring him to go skinny dipping,
I'm ugly to you. I knew it.
they actually go on a sincere date and make out, and she eventually gets jealous of a girl that's actually his age, inviting him out to go to a party with his future Princeton classmates, which is his college that he worked really hard to get into. Again, he's 19 years old. He just graduated high school. And to make matters worse, when he tells her that he's gonna have to be leaving to Princeton soon, she acts like she's not gonna talk to him anymore if he goes.
I don't do long distance.
And so he says he's in love with her and tries to give up on going to this college.
She doesn't really want to do long distance, so I'm not gonna go to Princeton.
Just so that he could stay here with her. And at this point I was like, okay, there's kind of no way that this could get any worse. This is just really gross. But again, I was wrong because he loses his virginity to her. Well, kind of loses it. I mean, he comes on her thighs. But holy shit, your 32-year-old ass is gonna take a teenager's virginity? Wild and out of pocket is what that is. There's also a scene where a real estate broker that Maddie went to high school with comes to her door, and there's this whole joke about how he had sex with his Spanish teacher and now they're married.
We got married. But they never run that story.
And it's such a random throwaway joke. It doesn't even make sense for it to be here. So it kind of just feels like they threw it in to be like, see, it could be worse. This age gap isn't that weird. That kind of age gap is. But aside from the few moments that this movie is actually funny, I found it very hard to watch. And I don't know, maybe if you're not traumatized, it could be your cup of tea. I don't know. But both Scott Pilgrim and No Hard Feelings have this kind of self-aware, I'm dating a teenager, but I know that's bad, I know that's weird, so it's funny, right? They have that kind of attitude. And I was trying to figure out where this interesting, I'm creepy, but I'm also an endearing protagonist trope came from. And I think I may have actually found the source. A 1978 film called Manhattan. This movie is about a 42-year-old man named Isaac dating a 17-year-old high schooler named Tracy. And within the first scene of the film, this is how he addresses that.
She's 17. I'm 42 and she's 17.
He even has to leave dinner early because she has homework to do.
She's got homework. I'm dating a girl who does homework.
Isaac's wife recently divorced him, so I guess you could say he's in that weird stage in his life. And shortly after starting this relationship with the 17-year-old, he begins dating another woman closer to his age named Mary at the same time. He quickly realizes that he likes the older woman more, despite still going out with and having sex with Tracy, which is just as awful as I'm making it out to be. I mean, dude, listen to her voice.
Well, they were really immature boys. I mean, they were nothing like you.
That's a child. Throughout the movie, he calls her a kid and tells her that she doesn't know what she wants.
You know, we're having a great time and all that, but you're a kid, and I never want you to forget that.
While simultaneously dating her and praising her for her maturity. This is a comedy with a capital C, by the way. Like, this is fully supposed to be funny, but it's very hard to turn your brain off to enjoy any of it. Tracy eventually attempts to abandon her dreams of studying in England for him, and she thinks she's fully in love with him. She tells him that she loves him, expecting him to reciprocate her feelings. But instead of saying it back, he breaks up with her.
I don't think we should keep seeing each other.
Why not?
And he tells her that she's a kid and that she's getting too hung up on him.
You can't be in love with me. We've been over this. You're a kid. You don't know what love means.
And it's only then that he admits that he already has another girlfriend.
The truth is that I love somebody else. Tracy, don't. Come on.
Just leave me alone.
Isaac's relationship with the older woman, Mary, blows up in his face by the end of the film, and so he rushes back to Tracy and tries to convince her to not go to London and follow her dreams.
I think I made a big mistake, and I would prefer it if you didn't go.
She doesn't agree to stay in New York just for him, luckily, but she does offer to hang out with him when she comes back in 6 months.
Will I be back in 6 months?
6 months? Are you kidding?
Isaac tells her that he can't wait for 6 months, though, that
I just don't want that thing about you that I like to change.
Care to elaborate what exactly it is that you're speaking of? Might it be her naivety and inexperience, which are the only 2 reasons why she likes you, probably? There's an open ending to this movie, like, will they or won't they? And after watching this, I felt such a whiplash because a lot of the elements in this, while even more creepy, obviously, were in the first 2 movies that we just talked about. Here's Scott Pilgrim waiting for Knives to get out of school, and here's Isaac waiting for Tracy to get out of school. Here's Percy trying to give up his dream school. Here's Tracy trying to give up her dream school. And the list goes on and on. And after witnessing what I feel is the birthplace of I'm dating a teenager, but in a funny way though, I did some research on the director of this movie that you might find pretty interesting. I wonder if the guy who cast himself in the lead role of a guy that's dating a 17-year-old is weird. I really wonder if he is. Whatever you think I'm about to say about this guy, the answer is yes, and plus 1,000 times worse. So first of all, his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow, claims that he molested her when she was 7 in 1992, and basically Woody Allen told her and everybody else that she's lying and that the only reason why Dylan was saying this was because she was getting brainwashed by her mom, Mia Farrow, who he says was trying to get back at him for, are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Dating his other stepdaughter. What the f? So within the same time span that Dylan came forward to the police, Mia found nude photos of her daughter, Suyi Previn, in Woody Allen's house. And at this time, Suyi Previn was 21 years old, but it's very evident that her and Woody Allen's relationship started way before this. And literally only one of his kids, besides the one he married, still talks to him. Like, this guy is actually clinically insane, and there's so many other details I could get into, but something else wild is that so many celebrities still support him, and they are like enablers. They're enablers. This is such a hard fucking movie to talk about because the cinematography of it truly tries to distract you from the problematic surface underneath it. Like, this is probably one of the prettiest movies I've ever seen, and it has the best sound design, and the soundtrack freaking fucks. But at the end of the day, as with everything else, there is that big elephant in the room. This movie is about a 17-year-old boy named Elio who has a relationship with this guy named Oliver who is 24, and they fall in love over the course of a summer in northern Italy. I say fall in love in air quotes because what the fuck? Like, why is this guy 17? Why? And I understand this movie is based on a book and it's literally just following what the book says, but would it have really been so hard just to age him up? Like, Timothy Chalamet is 21 years old in this movie. Like, is it so hard just to have him be 21? Like, you can still be inexperienced and finding yourself at age 21. Like, the age gap just does such a disservice to an otherwise good movie. And of course, the question, as of always, is this movie romanticizing a predatory age gap? Just also let me preface that I am not straight, so if you're coming into this video for some reason with like MAGA hat energy, like trying to shit on this movie because it's gay rather than the actual problem with it, then please just see yourself out. So there's a couple huge problems with this movie, and number one, and probably the worst one, is that I think Elio comes off as boyish, which he's 17, so like he's still in high school, so he kind of is. There's even a scene where like he goes to like shave his mustache in the mirror and there's there's nothing there. He's got peach fuzz, and like he spends his day like playing the piano. He writes in his little diary. There's even like a scene where like his parents like read him a story. When I saw that, I was like, please stop this madness, please. I think the other really huge thing is that it plays out like it's a normal love story. There's never a point that really indicates that the age gap is a bad thing. And on top of that, there's quite a few intimate scenes where it's just like, okay, why do we need to be depicting this right now? Or why does that have to be his age? Like, you can't have both of these things and just have it go unquestioned, you know? Either move the gap up or to remove these scenes. And one of the reasons that I've heard people say that this isn't romanticizing the relationship is because it ends in heartbreak. Oliver moves back to America at the end of the summer, which already devastates Elio, but then it just gets worse for him because 3 months later, Oliver calls him on the phone and is like, hey, I'm marrying someone else. And he has the audacity to say, do you mind? Literally, I cannot fucking stand this guy, or Armie Hammer, the fucking guy who plays him. Literally, both this character and Armie Hammer need to be locked away. So yes, it does have a sad ending. Elio is left crying by the fire, just like reflecting on everything that's happened. Meanwhile, Oliver has just already moved on. So you could interpret this as just being a realistic scenario about an age gap that ultimately has a negative ending, which is what I initially thought, but maybe I was smoking copium because there is quite a bit of damning evidence against that interpretation. Like, for example, at one point in the movie, Elio's father admits that he knows what's going on between him and Oliver, but he's not like upset about this grown-ass man like dating his high school age son. Instead, he makes this like elegantly crafted speech about how he's never had love as beautiful as that between Elio and Oliver.
I may have come close, but I never had what you two have.
And the other big one is that the entire cast, director, and author of the book refer to this as a love story. And Andre Aciman actually already wrote a sequel to Call Me By Your Name called Find Me, where later in life, Oliver and Elio end up together. So it's obvious what the intention was of the original text. And Andre just digs a deeper hole for himself as being a creepy person, because 2 years after this movie came out, he did an interview with a publisher called Icarlera? I'm not sure how to say that, sorry. But he says some interesting things. I'm just gonna read you this quote from him exactly as it's translated. And trigger warning, it's actually insane, so just be prepared for that. The other day, talking with a friend, I told him, I see 12-year-old girls and I already find them attractive. And he told me too, but you can't talk about it. And I replied, no, never, because if you talk about it, you're almost guilty of it. I do not commit the act, but you have no idea of the scabrous and disgusting ideas that come into our minds. How is it possible that he thought of something like that? But it is what happens in our mind. One of the things I do in my prose is allow the reader to feel that he can undo the taboos and realize that if we talk about the peach, it is because you have a peach in your life. You have also done something that crazy. And if you haven't done it, what kind of human being are you? We all explore in life. There's literally so much wrong with that statement that I truly do not know where to begin. Especially the whole we all explore in life line. line. Like, if that's what you mean by that, no, we do not. I'm sure there's probably some people out there that try to defend this quote and say that he's talking about intrusive thoughts. But my counter argument to that is somebody with OCD or another condition that amplifies intrusive thoughts most likely would never ever say anything like that because they're simply too horrified of their random passing thoughts that they assign meaning to. And like the whole conversation with the friend, like that's insane to bring up, and then this other random guy's just like, yeah, me too. Like that is not normal. But like with each one of these movies, there's always like one fucking weird creepo guy at the root of it all. I genuinely think that this guy had like the worst intentions when writing Elio to be 17. I think he just wanted to make something weird and taboo rather than actually focusing on a genuine love story. The last example that I want to bring up really quick before we get into a deep dive of celebrities that just dated teenagers is this movie that I found called Palo, Alto. This is a 2014 movie based on a short story written by James Franco, in which James Franco plays a soccer coach that starts a relationship with a 16-year-old girl. And what I find really interesting about this is that the same year this movie came out, he was caught DMing a 17-year-old girl and trying to get her to come to his hotel room. And not only that, he allegedly tried to seduce another 17-year-old and tried to get her to come to the hotel room too. And as far as James Franco goes, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Like, he has a long laundry list of abuse and sexual assault allegations that we won't get into today. But the nitty-gritty of all this is that there appears to be a correlation between creators that A, trivialize predatory behavior, B, creators that cast themselves into a role of predatory behavior, and C, base a character that is creepy on themselves. And unfortunately, art can reflect reality in more ways than one. Alright, so we just learned about how people like Woody Allen, James Franco, and Andre Aciman plug their weird fetishes and desires into their art. But what about these two blokes right here? And what's up with this empty spot? Well, I made this at 2 in the morning and I forgot to put someone there. But this guy, this MF right here, Roman Polanski, well, there's actually a lot of bad things that he's done. But the main one that pertains to this subject is that he had a relationship with an actress in one of his movies called Tess, Natasha Kinski, who was at the time 15 and he was 43. Now, what is the film Tess about, you may ask? Well, it's about a 16-year-old girl getting seduced by her older cousin. So what the fuck? I literally had to pause so many times when making this video and I was like, am I going insane? Like, am I literally going crazy? Can somebody do a wellness check on whoever Sam Levinson is dating? Because I'm worried about them. There's something about people who plug this shit into their content. And Jerry Seinfeld, why the fuck is he up here? You know, why is Barry B. Benson up here? Because he's basically like the tiny little baby version of all of these people who do this kind of shit. And before I flip this board over, I just want to let you know that if you don't want some of these celebrities to get ruined for you, maybe you should just leave the video now. Just don't watch the rest of this because it probably will just ruin your day. Here we go. So these are just the celebrities that have dated teenagers that I could fit on the board. Like, there's like 10 pictures of people that I cut out that I just couldn't even find space for because then all of this wouldn't be legible. Let's start with this side of the board first, and then we will get to the one that probably people are going to kill my whole family over bringing up. Like, there's nobody in the world that is as highly defended as this person right here. There's a couple of serial teenage daters on here, but one of them is Wilmer Valderrama. If you didn't know, this guy was in That 70s Show and he played Fez, and he briefly had his like moment in the sun before he started being really fucking creepy. And it's actually crazy how hard of a fall off this guy had, especially for the time period that this happened in. In the early 2000s, people were just dating teenagers like at the speed of light. Dudes were collecting young girls like if they were Puffles in Club Penguin. So first, he dated Mandy Moore when she was 16 and he was 20, and he went on to later brag about taking her virginity. that's great. So then moving on to him dating Lindsay Lohan, who was 17 when he was 24. Keep in mind, this is literally Elio and Oliver's age gap. Like, literally remove the pretty movie from the equation and you're like, what the fuck? Okay. Anyways, back to this. He dated Demi Lovato when she was 17 and he was 30. They went off and on for years, so rest in peace. Sorry, Demi Lovato. That probably freaking sucked. Also, sorry if I sound jittery. I'm literally... Dude, 7 Leaves Coffee will literally have you just like tweaking out. It's crazy. Next we have Paul Walker, and I know a lot of people don't like to talk crap about people who are dead. And as for me, in my personal opinion, I will talk crap on people who are dead until the day I die. Like, just because you're dead doesn't mean you're immune to criticism. Sorry. When I die, please talk about how my bangs look fucked up right now. I don't care. It's the truth. Okay, so he has 2 known cases of him dating underage minors. Oh my god, I'm burping. The first girl was named Aubriana Atwell, and she was 16. Meanwhile, he was 28. Ew. And then we have his wife that he was with until the day that he died. They started going out when she was 16, and he was 33. It's like he found 16-year-olds and he just like stayed there. He was like, oh, 16-year-olds, this is cool. Like, 16-year-olds, I'm never going back. Okay, so then we have the classic Hollywood couple, Winona Ryder and Johnny Depp. This relationship has been so widely romanticized. Like, you have no idea how many times on fucking Tumblr in 2012 I saw like fan edits of these two. And like, I never knew this until way later, but lo and behold, they started going out when she was 17 and he was 25. And it's like, I know the public perception of Johnny Depp has changed a lot, especially after the Amber Heard trial. But like, he was already up to like no good nonsense like way back when. Next we have Jerry Seinfeld, and okay, obviously he's not as insane as the other people on the other side of the board, but this is very weird behavior here. He met this girl, Sashona Lonstein, when she was 17 in Central Park. Like, imagine walking around in Central Park and like flirting with teenagers. Might as well start driving a white van that says free candy on it, dude. And so the reason why I'm actually putting him here is because in his show Seinfeld that he stars in as the main character and co-created, I found a very weird episode that feels like it absolutely kind of correlates with this, especially knowing that he wrote it himself. In season 4, episode 15 of Seinfeld, there's a scene where both George and Jerry get caught staring at a 15-year-old girl's boobs. And even after they get in trouble with this girl's dad, they have this conversation that goes as follows.
So who wouldn't look at his daughter's cleavage? She's got nice cleavage. That's why I posed. That's why I peeked.
There's absolutely no regard for this being a teenager, and it's simply played for a gag, even though this literally is a sophomore in high school. As far as Jerry's other work goes, I really can't say. I only had so much time to watch Seinfeld and read books in preparation for this video. Steven Tyler, if you don't know who Steven Tyler is, he was the lead vocalist of Aerosmith, a band that really sucks. Don't believe me? Listen to Dude Looks Like a Lady and come back to the comment section. But this dude literally pulled a Humbert. Like, he literally did a Lolita on this girl. He was 25 and he groomed her at 16, and then he literally became her parental guardian. That's just the tip of the iceberg with him, obviously, and he's 74 now. I think Woody Allen is also in his 70s. I'm hoping in the year 2024 we will let's just say lose the both of them. This is an even more obscure one. I never hear people bring this up, but Fergalicious dated Justin Timberlake when she was 23 and he was 16. R. Kelly, another person whose music sucks. Don't believe me? Listen to a pirated version of Trapped in the Closet and come back. He also kind of pulled the Lolita because he met this pop star named Aaliyah when she was 14, and then he basically illegally married her at 15 just so he couldn't get in trouble for any age laws. More recently, Tyga and Kylie Jenner. This was a very like open secret that they were already dating. Like, even her own family acknowledges that and just kind of enabled the relationship for some reason. There's a lot of enabling going on with all of this, but I find this one particularly disturbing because even Kourtney Kardashian was just like, yeah, I was dating guys in my 20s when I was a teenager. It's just kind of a thing. She's not a normal teenager. The mass hysteria that seems to happen with a lot of these celebrities is that people think that they're not like normal quote unquote teenagers because they're celebrities. And sure, while they might be living a wildly different life than let's just say little Mary or Tom, why were those the name examples I just gave? It definitely doesn't mean that they're not still teenagers. To be honest, I think it just makes them even more susceptible to creepy people because they're working around a bunch of grown-ups from the time they're like 12 years old. Jesse Rutherford and Billie Eilish. This is a really weird one. Wow. So while they only started dating when she was 21 and he was 38, I mean, that's alleged. That's just hearsay, to be honest. We don't know how long any of these people have actually been dating each other. He knew her when she was 15? Yikes. He also wrote a really weird, gross song that's like sexual about her when they broke up. I hope he gets ratioed, and plus his music sucks. Plus no one cares about him. And that leads us to Taylor Swift. She was kind of Miss Serial Teenage Dater of 2012. Like in 2012, she had 3 different relationships with teenagers. Like, what the fuck was going on? She probably thought that the Mayan calendar was real and like the end of the world really was gonna happen, so she didn't have to like worry about any of this coming back. Let's just start with Taylor Lautner. He was 18, she was 22. Moving on to Harry Styles, who was 18, she was 22, but there was talks about them being in a relationship before this. I don't know if that's true. Either way, it's sus. The last sus relationship she had, which is honestly the most incriminating one, I think, was with this kid named Connor Kennedy. And the reason why it's so weird is that she met Connor when he was only 17 and his mom had just passed away. So obviously he's kind of like in this vulnerable state. And either way, he was still in high school. Just really weird. Maybe the world should have ended then. Underneath her, we have Harry Styles again. Nicole Scherzinger. Sorry, I don't know how to say that name. She was 30 years old when she dated Harry Styles and he was 16. Not only that, but she was a host on X Factor, which adds another crazy thing to the power dynamic here. Like, imagine you're this new young kid trying to make a music career, and then here's the judge flirting with you that is way older. Holy crap. Aaron Taylor Johnson and his wife, they met when he was 17 and she was 42. They didn't start dating, quote unquote, until he was 18. But my question is like, do we really believe these people about waiting until the second their significant other turned 18 to date them? Like, no, there's definitely stuff going on already. But the power dynamic here is absolutely nutso because she was the director of a movie that he was trying to star in called Nowhere Boy. Just absolute grooming territory right there. Just absolute groomerville. Lastly, we have Hunter S. Sommick. Sorry, I don't know how to say that name either. He was 20 years old, dating Millie Bobby Brown at 16, and he literally admitted to this on a TikTok live, which is kind of really insane. And Millie Bobby Brown has since talked about how she felt very vulnerable and sad in that relationship, which is really sad, honestly. But that is my board of creeps. I really wanted to talk about a lot more in this video. In fact, I watched like 2 seasons of Pretty Little Liars and Riverdale because I wanted to talk about teacher-student relationships in movies and TV. I also read a couple books for this video that I'm not even ending up talking about now. What the? I read My Dark Vanessa. I read Lolita. Oh my god, I did so much research and it's not even gonna be in here. So let me know if you want like a part 2 to this video looking at like student-teacher relationship fetish stuff. I would love to talk about it. Special thanks to my patrons for supporting me, supporting my content. You guys are amazing. And just thank you all for watching this nonsense. I really hope you liked it. This is a lot different than what I usually make, I think. So yeah, I'll see you guys all very soon. Bye-bye.